What is going on, everybody? Welcome to an NFL draft and transfer portal closure / recap edition of the Coach and the Couch Potato. As always, I am Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we got our guy Coach Slate, and I think we might as well just hop right into it with 14 guys getting drafted. That's a pretty busy weekend.
Yeah, man. Thought we were going to get to that number 16. I was really hoping that we did, but fell a little short. But listen, man, anytime you can lead the draft and the number of picks that we had, it's always going to be a good weekend for the Buckeyes when you can do that.
Yeah, 100%. I cannot believe, G. Scott and Josh Fryer, okay, we knew they were question marks. But Seth McLaughlin not getting drafted is a travesty. But I think he came out in a very, very good situation. Kind of like your guy Trevor Harris would tell you, sometimes being an undrafted free agent is better than being a 7th round pick.
Yeah, no doubt, man. You get to kind of pick where you want to go.
Exactly.
When you're one of those fringe guys, a lot of times you got a lot of teams that are kind of bidding for your services, and so you get to go where you think you fit best. And so sometimes it's the best situation for you, and a lot of times your agents will tell you it's probably better to go undrafted.
Yeah, exactly. Party got started on Thursday night. We had 4 guys go in the first round. I would say the 4 that went were all pretty surefire first rounders, really. I don't know about where some of them went. First guy off the board was Emeka Egbuka to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You go from the best wide receiver room in college to one of the best, but also probably the most professional in the NFL.
Yeah, listen, man. Everybody knows how we feel about Emeka. That dude is an elite human being. You have a son, I'm a girl dad. If I had a son, I'd pray they turned out to be like Mecca. Like, that dude is a phenomenal individual, going to a great place in Tampa Bay. Just a stud, just an absolute stud. He's got the potential to be a 90 to 100 catch guy. Going to be in warm weather, catching footballs from Baker Mayfield, playing for Todd Bowles. I just think he embodies what they look for in their receivers. It's a situation where Chris Godwin his health is up in the air. So it's a place where he's going to have an immediate impact right away. And I can't think of a better place for him to land. Just pumped for him. All the talking about him possibly falling to the second round, I never bought. And then when he went and ran a 4.4, whatever, I just knew he was going to be a first rounder after that.
Yeah, there was some scuttlebutt out there that the Broncos wanted him. Tampa Bay took him right in front of them. And then, the Bucs also took Tez Johnson or signed him as an undrafted free agent. So that's kind of a nice little, that room gets younger.
Yeah.
And Tez Johnson, the story there is, pretty phenomenal.
The
only thing that would have been cooler was if Tez would have went to Denver.
Yeah. Be teamed up with Bo.
Yeah. The next guy off the board was a guy we've talked about numerous times this season. The MVP of the team, in my opinion, Donovan Jackson, goes to the Vikings. They have put a ton of emphasis on the trenches on both sides of the ball. You've got Jay Jettas. I think Aaron Jones is still there in the backfield.
Yeah.
But they were a little weak, the O-line. Quarterback position, a little interesting. If J.J. McCarthy's healthy, I assume it's going to be his job. They did just trade for Sam Howell, though.
Yeah. Talk about a guy who really helped his draft stock, kicking out the left tackle, had questions about whether he wanted to do it or not. And then he just did it to really help his team. And then boom, now he's a first round draft pick. Like, you've said it multiple times, MVP of the team, just absolutely selfless individual. The Minnesota Vikings are getting a gem. I think he fits exactly what Kevin O'Connell was looking for in that offensive line room. He's just going to fit and mesh well with the culture and just the city of Minnesota in general, wherever in Minneapolis and in the state, and just everything about, the Minnesota Vikings. He's just going to fit in perfectly. So I think it's a good situation. He's a plug and play guy, in my opinion. I really think he is. I didn't expect him to go as high as 24. I really didn't. I thought he could squeak into the first round. But to see him go that high, man, hey, I'm pumped up for him.
Yeah, and then the guy who probably, especially among the first rounders, has the best situation. Tyleik Williams goes to the Detroit Lions.
Oh yeah.
You know, a D lineman getting to play for Dan Campbell, getting to line up with Aiden Hutchinson. You know, I think Tyleik is extremely underrated. And I think him getting taken here shows you that the league saw what he brings to the table.
Absolutely, man. And I thought the draft coverage on ESPN did a really good job. Even though it was like one of the times they weren't actually talking about Shador. They actually did a really good job of covering, what Tyleik brings to the table. He's 335 pounds, but he plays three technique. And to be that big and to be an agile three technique is something that you don't see really that often, especially in the NFL. You typically see people that big playing, the one technique, the shade nose guard. And so to see that guy that size to be able to play that three technique, I could see, the Detroit Lions really trimming him down just a little bit, maybe getting him down to like 320. And if they get him down to that size, he's already an explosive athlete. But man, watch out because he is a freaking wrecking ball, and he's just going to be such a good player on the, stopping the run. He's got some good pass rush moves. I just think again another plug and play guy that you add to the trenches, and he just a high motor nonstop. I think he really showed his value this year, especially in the playoffs. And he wasn't always 100% healthy this season as well. And he still played through and battled through it and just did it at a high level. So great situation for free 91 and up there in Detroit.
And then last pick of the first round, the Kansas City Chiefs take a guy who it sounds like the Browns tried to trade into the back part of the first round to get, and that's Josh Simmons. If Josh Simmons doesn't get hurt in the Oregon game, he's probably the number one tackle off the board.
No doubt about it, man.
And then the second round gets kicked off with the Cleveland Browns taking a Buckeye running back. Not the one I thought they were going to take, but it makes sense the more I think about it. They take Quinshon Judkins at pick 36. I really thought they were going to take Trey, but I think the more I kick it around, Quinshon is more that AFC North running back.
He's the prime Kareem Hunt, man. Every time I watch him run, that's exactly what I think. Our guy Jake Burns with the Buckeyes-Film-Breakdown has brought that up many times. I think it's a good fit for him. I think, adding him with Dylan Sampson in that backfield, I just think he really fits what Kevin Stefanski wants to do. Do I think he's going to be Nick Chubb level? I think that's going to be extremely difficult to do. But, man, I think he's got potential to be, 1,200-yard ball carrier for the Browns for the next 5 or 6 years and just be a really big three-down bell cow running back for the Buckeyes. And I think it's a really good situation for him. And so, place where they're trying to figure out who the heck the quarterback is. Yeah. Let's lean on the run game. And I just think he landed in a great spot. High character guy who has fell in love with the state of Ohio. And so it's just a great spot for him, man. So I'm pumped for Quinshon. And as a Browns fan, I'm just glad I get to keep rooting for him.
Yeah, for sure. 2 picks later, Trey comes off the board to the Patriots. Obviously Coach Vrabel is going to want to slow the game down, I guess you would say. Drake May showed flashes, but what better way to help a young quarterback than to go get a guy like Travion?
Yeah. Trey is a guy I know a lot of people thought that Trey may go ahead of Quinshon, like you just mentioned. Like Travion is that type of guy who's going to be that Jahmyr Gibbs type. You couple him with somebody who's going to be your 20-plus ball carrier, and I think Travion could be a 750 type guy. I think he's got that type of potential. If he can stay healthy, I think he is going to be an electric player in this league for a very, very, very long time. I think he's got Alvin Kamara potential, man. I really do. I can see it. And what an asset to the locker room and to the culture of that team. And I know Mike Vrabel knows that. He just wants football players in that locker room. And so Travion, he's going to have a long NFL career. And I know Coach Vrabes was just pumped to get another Buckeye in that building.
Oh, for sure. And then the last guy in the second round, Buckeye wise, JTT goes to the
Yeah.
Colts. I know this is a little bit higher than you thought that he was going to go. We've talked about that during the weekend, but they were really bad defensively. Their front four was not very good. So you bring a guy in who, while he is considered an edge, is probably a little bit better against the run than he is as a pass rusher.
Yeah, I think JT has got a lot of good skills against the run. I think, a spin move in the pass rush game, his long arm and bull rush, I think those things are really good. I think his pass rush game could use some refinement and development. I think when he gets into the NFL, he's got to have a plan A, a plan B. I think there's just some things with flexibility and things like that he's got to work on. But I think he could be an elite run defender. His quickness, he can penetrate, he can just do so many different things. I think if he's a guy that you get on the move, there's just so many different things that JT can do to affect you in the run game. And so I just feel like if he gets into an NFL system and they can refine some of those tools, I just think, man, he's got the potential to be a 3-down guy for the Colts, and it's just a good situation for him. He's got a potential to play early. Obviously, they spent a second-round pick on him, so they're expecting him to play early. And again, another elite human that is going to another good organization.
Yeah, so then no Buckeyes in the third round. I really thought that we would see some guys in the third round, so that really surprised me. Going into the fourth round, there's definitely a trend with not just the 3 4th-round guys, but arguably the rest of the guys we're going to talk about from here on out. And that's that these guys are going to have a chance to put their head down, get to work, and they could all see pretty substantial roles with where they went. Started with Cody Simon going to the Arizona Cardinals. A team trying to get younger on the back end of that defense. And Cody Simon, and they did a really good job of breaking him down on the coverage of the draft. I did get to see that part, talking about how he's not just a linebacker. He's a pretty dang good pass rusher.
Yeah, he's a good blitzer. He's a good pass rusher. He's really good in coverage. He was, the guy who's doing all the communication. He was the green dot guy. Like he held so many responsibilities. He was just a true vocal leader of that defense. He was a true leader on the team. And so that's obviously why he was the Block O recipient. I think they see those type of things and they just want to add to the leadership of that defense. You're looking at a franchise who took the likes of Isaiah Simmons a few years ago, where you're just betting on elite traits. Well, sometimes you just need to bet on football players, and Cody Simon is that. And I think you're getting a guy who is going to have a very productive, 5, 7, 8-year career, and he can just be that steady Eddie. He may not ever develop into like a big time Pro Bowl caliber player all the time, but he's going to be consistent year in, year out. Pretty similar to like Jordan Hicks when he was with the Eagles, right? Yep. Just somebody who was just consistently playing at a pretty good clip. Now he's with the Browns, and so he's doing some really good things, but you never really see him like turn into an all-pro level, but he's a veteran that people want in the locker room. I think Cody Simon can be that for the Cardinals and really carve out a good niche in the NFL. And he's just somebody that's easy to root for, man. He just stuck it out, and it's just a definition of a Buckeye, man. So I'm happy for him. It's a good situation. He's got a chance to play really early.
Yeah, and you heard the Cardinals upper management talk about how they like Ohio State guys because of the way Ryan Day runs the program.
Yeah.
Which there's another one joining him when we get into the 5th-round guys. But, you've got Marv already there. You've got Paris Johnson. You have Justin Fry. And then a guy who, obviously you've made no secrets about the way you feel. Lathan Ransom goes to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, Lathan is somebody, as a Browns fan, I was hoping that he would find a way to get to the Browns. We need some safety help, so I was kind of hoping he would find a way to get picked up by the Browns. But Lathan Ransom, when healthy, I think he's one of the best safeties in the country. I think he was one of the best safeties in the draft. I think when he's healthy, he can do it all. He can play down in the box. He can play your half safety. He can play your post safety. Obviously, we saw, even in the Oregon game and throughout his entire career, he's not afraid to come up and hit you. That's not something he's afraid to do at all. He can be in the box as a true linebacker if you need him. He can be an outside. He can be a nickel. He can play man coverage. The dude can do it all. He's a very solid blitzer. The biggest thing with him is, can he stay healthy? Right?
Yeah.
He's had some nagging injuries. And when I say nagging, I'm talking like Liz Frank foot injuries, things like that just don't go away. And so that's going to be the biggest hiccup that he has. Will he stay healthy? If he can stay healthy, he's going to find a role on the team, whether it's actually in the rotation as a safety or if it's as a special teams demon for the rest of his career. He's going to have a role on a team. And so I'm rooting for this guy because I think the potential is very, very high for him to be an impact player on a team in one of those roles. And so the big thing for him is going to be staying healthy. The Panthers organization, we've talked about that before. Maybe not the best. They're up there with the Browns as being, one of the lower rated franchises. But because of that, I think that will help him actually get onto the field a lot earlier than maybe he should.
Yeah, and then the other 4th round Buckeye definitely breaks the heart of Browns fans. I also think it probably breaks the heart of the Bengals fans because I think he had been tied to them a lot, and that is Jack Sawyer going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. It just makes too much damn sense. When you look at the kind of guy Jack Sawyer is, the way Pittsburgh runs their organization, it's honestly a match made in heaven.
It makes too much sense, and it frustrates me to no end. But he's going to go there, and he's going to be a very good player. To listen to Mike Tomlin talk about him, to talk about the motor that he plays with, the intangibles that he has, the comparisons that people made to him early in his career at Ohio State were very J.J. Watt-like. I know that he's going to be learning from T.J. Watt, but I think he's got the potential. He could be a 3-4 outside backer like T.J. Watt is, or he could be a 3-4 defensive end like J.J. Watt was. And so that's going to be interesting to see where they play him. I think his best position, being that he's 265-ish pounds, maybe a little bigger, I think he's going to be best suited to be that 3-4 defensive end. And so I think he's a little stiff when it comes to being that true outside backer. But I think if you kick him down inside as that 3-4 defensive end, now you're talking about a guy who can really create some havoc. And so I think it's a perfect situation for him. Everybody knows we're Browns fans, but I got mad respect for Mike Tomlin and that organization over there in Pittsburgh. And I think they develop guys and they maximize guys. And I think guys like Cam Hayward, another former Buckeye, they're not going to let, Jack fail. And I think Jack's going to go over there and represent himself very well. Just a good situation. I can't believe he fell to the 4th round. I was pretty shocked by that, but he's going to go over there and ball, and he's going to probably wreck the AFC North and make us upset for a long time.
Yeah. And then the 5th round, 3 more guys. A guy who I think, you kind of talked about Cody Simon having that longevity piece. He's not going to wow you. Ty Hamilton goes to the Rams. And I think Ty Hamilton, we saw with his brother Davon, who was like a 3rd round pick and just got paid because he was a steady Eddie kind of guy.
Yeah, man.
And I think Ty's the same kind of player.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes, and Bill Belichick he always said this: do your job.
Yeah.
Ty Hamilton does his job, and he does his job very well. And it may not be the flashiest, it may not be the most elite thing that you see, but he gets it done, right? He's got physical, heavy hands, and he eats up that A gap. And that is a thing that needs to be done in the NFL. There is a role for that in the NFL, and I think that he can fill that role for a very long time and be able to be in a rotation. may not develop into this elite prospect or elite player, but he can play in a rotation and be in a rotation in the league for a while. And so this is a guy who has been underrated for a long time, kind of overlooked. He really started to come into his own these last 2 years. I think he's going to be able to find his niche. And that's just what he does. He just does his job. And if he continues to do his job, he'll continue to play in the NFL. And so another good situation. We're going to keep saying it like these are good situations, but we were extremely lucky and blessed to just have such a great group of seniors that it's hard to bet against these guys, not especially these guys later in the draft, not to make these rosters. Like it's just so hard to bet against them.
Yeah, and they all found situations where there are doors there.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, like Jordan Hancock goes to the Buffalo Bills, a fantastic franchise. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the league. They are always going to compete for the AFC while they have Josh Allen, but their secondary's been a little suspect at times. They've swung and missed on some guys. Tre'Davious White a few years back never really materialized. DeMar Hamlin had the insanely scary injury. And Jordan Hancock can fill every spot in the secondary, basically.
He can, man. I think he is. I think he's a guy that's going to be missed with the Buckeyes this year. I think that's going to be a quiet person that we miss very much. I think he got a little overlooked for what he brought to the Buckeye defense. Just a Swiss Army knife, can do everything in that secondary. He could play outside, he could play inside, he could play both safety spots. He could just do it all, man. And he's a 6th or 5th round pick. Listen, he was probably my favorite defensive player this past year. I just think he can do so many different things. He's going to have a long NFL career, in my opinion, especially in that slot position. It is a premium position in the NFL, yes, even though it doesn't get paid like a premium position.
Right.
And so he can go out there and prove his worth very early in his career. He's a physical player. He's a great blitzer. He can just do so much. He's got an opportunity to see the field very, very early in his career.
Yeah, I think it's a great spot for him. And then, the last guy in the 5th round is probably the guy who lost the most money by being part of that class coming back. Denzel Burke gets to go home being an Arizona guy, and he goes to the Cardinals. He's going to get to go against Marv every day at practice. Him and Will Johnson may be the starting corners next year for the Cardinals.
Yeah, how crazy is that, man? It's crazy to think about, right? He came back to improve his draft stock, maybe not improved his draft stock, but he did come back. He got a bag in NIL money, and he got a natty, right? So
yep.
How do you define success, right? Okay, had he come back and we went 9-3, but he became a 3rd round pick or a 2nd round pick, how do you feel about that? Your legacy's tarnished, but you did get drafted higher than maybe you thought you would have. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
in the end, he's always going to be able to have a place in Buckeye history as a national champion. And so Denzel Burke, although people will say like, oh, well, his senior year, he didn't play well. The dude had one bad game. Other than that, he balled out this year. Like, he played very well. He had one bad game where he did get put on skates a few times. It was a rough game for him. But after that, he bounced back. He played well. And that's that next play mentality that NFL teams see. And if you look at his tape from his previous 3 years, the talent is there to be an NFL starter. There's zero doubt about it. And so that's going to be the challenge for the Arizona Cardinals. Can they get that out of him? And can Denzel tap into that? I think the ability is there. And you couple him with Will Johnson. I mean, the ability is there. And so if they can tap into that, you're talking about having 2 really, really good Big Ten corners out there in Arizona, man. So I'm rooting for him. Obviously, he's back home, so it's a great situation for him. And I hope it all works out for him, man, because that guy deserves it. He was a great Buckeye, and he's got all the talent in the world, man. I just hope it all comes together for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the lone 6th round pick, a guy who I didn't think would make it that far. But again, I don't know that it's going to be any better situation because I'm going to operate under the premise that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And the Pittsburgh Steelers take Will Howard.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure that, the NFL doesn't love his arm strength or lack thereof. But, man, he's a leader. He's a teammate. He's accurate as heck. He's athletic. He's a big frame. There's a lot to like about this dude. And I'm not just saying that because it's Will Howard. I think that Quinn Ewers got slept on. I mean, and that's a whole other conversation. That's a guy who is rumored to have turned down $8 million to go to the portal and became a 7th round pick. He was the highest ranked recruit ever at the quarterback position, goes to Texas, and it just doesn't work. I mean, it worked. They won some games and he made some money. But, back to Will, though, I tweeted out Saturday morning because we'll kind of rehash the Browns after we talk about the undrafted free agents. And I said, you guys know that whatever quarterback the Steelers take today is going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm not saying Will Howard is going to be a Hall of Famer for real, but that's the way this works as a Browns fan.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great situation for Will, especially if they do get Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers will be a mentor to him, but I do think it's just a good situation learning, just with a great franchise. There is a clip of him I saw today, just hoping that Pittsburgh drafted him. Will Howard is just definition of what a leader looks like.
Yep.
And he's an easy guy to root for. May not have the elite arm strength, but he can get the ball down the field. He can just do all those different things. And so he's got the intangibles. It may not click right away for him, but I do think he does have the ability to develop over time. And over time, you continue to work with him. I do think he could develop into a starter. And if that doesn't happen, he could still be in this league for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
So listen, it's a great situation. And I think, he can just sit there and he can learn, he can grow. And I'm just very happy that he was able to go to Pittsburgh and not go to somewhere where he has to play right away.
Yeah.
And so this is a good spot for him. And I'm glad it worked out for him, man, because he did what he needed to do here at Ohio State. And I just go there, get to learn from one of the GOATs, and just continue to grow, man. And I think it's a good spot for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we have the 3 undrafted free agents. Seth McLaughlin, I think, found a fantastic situation. He goes to the Bengals. I don't see a way he doesn't make that team if he's healthy.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I didn't think he'd go undrafted. Another guy that I think, had he stayed healthy, he would have definitely, I think it would have been a top 5 round draft pick. I think he is a starting center in the NFL. I think his athleticism is underrated. I think he was playing extremely high level football for the Buckeyes.
Yeah.
And even in Alabama before, he got the yips, I think he was playing high level football. So another guy that I think is going to make the roster for sure. And he's an easy guy to root for. Achilles injuries haven't been, somebody who's ruptured his Achilles. It's going to take some time. It's not something he's going to rush back from, but I think he's got a lot of potential, and just take your time coming back, man. And I think you're going to have a long NFL career ahead of you.
And then Josh Fryer joins Justin Fry in Arizona with the Cardinals. I think he's going to have to earn it a little bit just because he never showed a propensity to excel anywhere. Like, he played really good, and he played through some injuries in the playoff run, but in the NFL, it seems like they want their linemen to excel at something.
Yeah. Listen, man, he got an opportunity, right? He got an opportunity.
That's all you can ask.
And that's all you can ask for. And they might kick him down inside. Like, you just don't know what they're going to do with him. Underrated athlete. Haven't seen him live in practice. Like, he can move. Like, he can do a lot of good things. I just don't know if right tackle was his natural spot. So we'll see. They may kick him down inside. I do think there is ability there. I do think Coach Fry will be able to get the most out of him. I do think he's going to have to fight, scratch, and claw. But I do think, if anybody's going to get the most out of him, it will be the offensive line coach that's developed him into a pretty solid player. And so I'm rooting for him, man, because I think he did a lot of good things for us as a Buckeye. And so hopefully it works out.
And then G. Scott goes to the Patriots. Vrabes adds another Buckeye.
Yeah.
For as much as we talk about Emeka and Travion and the young men they are, G. Scott is right there with them as far as character traits. Again, this is a kid that came in as a wide receiver, so he's still new to the tight end position, and I still don't know that his body is that of a tight end yet.
Yeah, and it just he's still learning how to play the position. He grew into this physical player, learned how to not be afraid of contact. I just think, his best football is still ahead of him. But I also think he carves out a role on special teams. Like, this is a guy who can be on your punt team. He can be on your punt return team and be a leader of those units. Like, he can carve out a long career doing those type of things. And he's that type of selfless player. And so those are the type of guys that the Patriots are known for having.
Yes,
I'm just saying. And so I think G. Scott fits that mold to a T. I'm rooting for him, man, because he is just a phenomenal, phenomenal dude. And so, I think it's a good spot for him. And I think if anybody's going to get it out of him, it's going to be Vrabes.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously closing down the draft portion, we would be remiss if we didn't explore the Browns draft real quick. I liked most of the draft. I know you and I have very different opinions on one of the picks. I love the Mason Graham pick. That dude is so good. Yeah. And that helps Myles Garrett. That helps the back seven. The linebacker from UCLA fills a massive need because I think JOK is probably more hurt than we know.
Yeah.
The Quinshawn pick, we love that. Dylan Sampson. Harold Fannin, I think that is a sneaky good pick.
Absolutely.
Kevin Stefanski loves to run that 12 personnel. So you get Njoku and Fannin out there. Obviously, third round, it was like pick 96. There were a ton of really, really good ball players on the board still. And Kamish walks up to the podium with the card. The Cleveland Browns select Dylan Gabriel. And I thought maybe there's Dylan Gabriel that played another position I didn't know about. Because Dylan Gabriel in the third round, the thing came out and, he broke the velocity record. So he's got some zip on his throws. Well, when the ball's getting batted down, it's just going to come back to him harder because he can't see over the line. If you take Dylan Gabriel in the fifth round, I'm okay with it. And if you take the guy you took in the fifth round anywhere outside of the first round, it's a home run, and that's Shedeur Sanders. I just don't get taking Gabriel to take Shedeur in that order.
I get it. Yeah, I get it. Listen, they got to take swings at quarterback, and
they do.
Whatever round they took him in, it is what it is. Like, they got to get it right, and I don't listen. They could take three quarterbacks. I don't care. Like, they got to get that position right, no matter what. And so I thought it was a pretty solid draft given who they got. Obviously love Quinshawn, Mason Graham, being able to get a first rounder next year.
Yeah.
I was hoping that they got Shedeur. I think Shedeur has gotten a bad rap because of who his dad is, but that's a whole nother conversation. Obviously I don't think he handled the pre-draft process the greatest, and I think he'll be the first to admit that. But the bottom line is, dude, you got an opportunity, and you need to just put your head down and go grind. And it's a low cost and a low risk, very high reward for the Browns, man. And so, like, hey, after preseason, if he's not cutting it, you can get rid of him, or you could trade him. You could find something to do because he's going to be an asset. And so I don't blame the Browns for doing it. I thought they would take two quarterbacks. Listen, man, they got to get it right. I thought the AFC North did a pretty solid job of drafting. The Bengals kind of shocked me with their first round pick. But other than that, man, listen, I just want to be like the Ravens. I want to be like the Steelers.
And the Steelers. Yes.
I just want to be able to draft best player available all the time. And then just go ahead and draft guys like Malachi Starks and just go ahead and just keep stacking up all pro safeties all the time. But we'll get there one day. But I thought it was an okay draft. The NFL draft is just a national holiday, man. It's my favorite, one of my favorite weekends of the year. Just these kids, man, just living out dreams, lives being changed. It's just so freaking cool, man. I love it.
It's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I mean, the Browns draft, I would give it like a B plus, but you take the Gabriel pick out, or even if you flip him and Shador, it goes to an A.
Yeah.
I think Shador is going to come in. Hopefully focused. I think this weekend was a really good wake up call. As far as let's cut the theatrics and play ball.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good traits there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of really good traits, and I think his skill set fits what Kevin Stefanski wants to do very well. I also think Dylan Gabriel's skill set fits what Kevin Stefanski wants to do very well. In my opinion, I don't think between the two of them, I don't think there's much difference between, a Brock Purdy, a prime Kirk Cousins, or a prime or a healthy Tua. Right? I don't think there's much of a difference between those type of guys. And I think if we had those guys healthy and in their prime, I think the Browns could be pretty solid. And so, I think if we can get the best out of those guys, heck, they might not even be the starters, right? We still have 8 other quarterbacks on the roster. So we'll see what happens, man.
Interesting nugget to close out the Browns talk. Currently on FanDuel or DraftKings, the odds-on favorite by a lot to take the first snap of the first regular season game for the Browns is Kenny Pickett.
Okay.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
The draft, kind of closes that door on college for these guys, obviously. But, another door closed this weekend, and that was the spring portal. I thought it was really cool to hear Ryan Day say he enjoyed a couple cold beverages after the portal closed. Ohio State keeps the entire scholarship grid there. That we had wondered, does Lincoln Keenholz transfer out? Nope. We did lose TC Caffey last week, in between episodes, which, we've made no bones about the way we feel about him. He's going to go be great somewhere. 2 portal commitments, though, since the last episode. A guy we talked a lot about, Bo Atkinson, the DN from North Carolina, 6'6", 265. We talked about him a lot last time, but he does commit to the Buckeyes. I think he gives you a little bit of flexibility for the rush man package. Move him down on that in that look.
Yeah. I think Bo Atkinson is a stud, man. 6'5", 6'6", 260 plus pounds. I think he could play, the strong side defensive end, that 5 technique that's lined up to the field. I think he could bump down and be a solid 3 technique as well. So I think he provides some really good position versatility for us. I do think he's going to be in a very, very strict competition with Kenyatta and with Caden Curry. I don't think those are guaranteed spots for those two. So I do think it's going to be a really good 3-man rotation. And obviously CJ Hicks and a few others are going to be in that spot as well, Logan George. And so I'm excited for that, man. I think Bo Atkinson provides immediate playing time and immediate depth at that spot right now. And so I'm excited for what he could bring to that defensive line room.
Yeah. I still think we try to add a D tackle somewhere.
Yep.
We'll be interested to see there. Then the second guy they added, definitely a depth piece at this point. Definitely a lot of potential there. Justin Terry, offensive lineman from West Virginia, via Pickerington, 6'5", 338. Went to WVU this year, but redshirted, so he's still got all 4 years of eligibility. So I don't think they're expecting anything playing time wise out of him this year.
Yeah, and any time you can provide the scholarship limits have obviously increased. So Ohio State's mentioned being in that 90 to 95 range. And so the ideal number that they have mentioned for the offensive line room is 16 scholarship players. And right now, when they were leaving the spring, they were at 14. Obviously, they retained all their offensive linemen. So being at 14, they want to add at least 2 more. So they got to add 2 more. Getting a homegrown guy that's going to come in, he's going to fight for that, spot. He's going to really work. Grew up wanting to be a Buckeye. I think it's a no-brainer in my opinion. Big dude, going to be able to play tackle, going to be able to play on the interior as well. I just think it's a no-brainer in my opinion to be able to take these type of guys. And that's one of the things I love about this increase in the scholarship limit is because now you can take more swings on guys like this.
Yes.
Because now maybe I will take this guy from down the street because, I can develop him over time, right? I don't always have to go swing for the fences for all these 5 stars because now I can actually go fill this room up with 16 scholarship guys. And so I'm excited about it. I think he's going to need some time to develop, but hey, a guy who wanted to be a Buckeye, a homegrown guy, let's bring him home, see what he can do in a few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Jaden Ball, who did visit last week, did commit to Minnesota. So that is one name off the table. Defensive tackle wise, Troy Pikes visited, but according to Berm, he's definitely not coming. There's something hanging out there in his past. Murad Watson went with Texas. He's their 5th defensive tackle in the spring portal.
Okay.
You should have stayed home, Hero Canoe.
Yeah.
One thing, Orion Irving will announce this week. He's got one more visit, I think. And then one thing that really strikes me as kind of odd is Ohio State reached out to Keelan Marion, a wide receiver, which, Brian Hartline has always said, I will not take a wide receiver in the transfer portal. This guy's from BYU, but I don't think Ohio State's looking at him as a true XYZ receiver. I think they want him to return kicks and punts.
Okay. Yeah. Listen, again, scholarship limit increase. You can now add these guys who are return specialists. You can really hone in on these guys who are focused on specific skill sets, right? And so now you don't have to worry about putting Brandon Ennis back there. You don't have to worry about putting a Mekabuka back there. You don't have to do that. You can go get these guys who can fit a specific need, and that's just what they focus on. And so if you can get it, this guy's very good at doing this. Hey, let's go get him. Let's see what he can do. He could provide depth at receiver as well. I'm all for it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That kind of closes the door on all things football related for football season 24 to 25. And in a way kicks off, 25 to 26. As of right now, the Buckeyes are the current betting favorite in Vegas.
There we go.
To repeat, not by much, over Texas. I had a pretty interesting exchange in the last couple of days with somebody who is adamant Texas is winning. Arch Manning's winning the Heisman and going number 1 overall.
Okay.
I'm like, do you see what they did to Quinn Ewers? Arch hasn't shown. I mean, yes, he's got to play, but he hasn't shown us anything legit yet. He's been a gadget, and he played against some scrubs.
Yeah.
So we shall see. But yeah, like we said at the beginning, thank you to all of our new listeners, our old listeners. We're exploring some new stuff, trying some new things. And, like I said, like the videos, comment on the videos, comment on the Facebook posts, and definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. But with that, we will see you guys next week.